All good. Okay, so we're picking up now at number 4. Okay, so first question you ask yourself, is there a greatest common factor? Look at the smallest number is usually the hint. The smallest number is 3. Can 3 go into 17? No, so there is no GCF. So we just need to ask ourselves, is it simple or complex? Complex because of the number in front of the x squared. So now that we know that it's complex, we want two numbers that multiply to, careful, a times c, negative 18, and adds to the middle term, which is 17. Now, if it's multiplying to a negative, whenever we want two numbers that multiply to a negative, what does that mean? You will borrow mine. One positive, one negative. Whenever. Always, always, always. If it multiplies to negative, one's going to be positive, one's negative. So if we have 18 or negative 18, we can start by where would the product tree begin? 1 and 18. So we could do 1 and negative 18 or negative 1 and 18. Does any of those add to 17? Negative 1 and 18 add to 17. So there's our numbers. Negative 1, 18, negative 1, 18. Okay, so what are we going to do with those special numbers? You're thinking simple. We're replacing the 17. We want to make factor by grouping. We want to make 4 terms. So 16x squared. So instead of writing 17x, we're going to write negative 1x plus 18x, and then we still have minus 3. Okay, so now what are we going to use? So the first two, what can we divide both those? 1 and x. Remember, there's always a variable here. So we can divide both by 1x. How about the next guy? 3. So put the x in front. We're left with 6x squared divided by x. 6x minus anything divided by itself is 1. Plus, what goes in front here? What are we factoring out? 3. Factoring out a 3. And so we write plus 3, because it's a positive 3 we're factoring out. 6x minus 1. We know we didn't make a mistake because the insides are the same. So now we factor out 6x minus 1, and we're left with x plus 3. No, you can't. You have to write it out. You can write it again and just double check, right? Okay, let's go to C. Skip B. Let's go to C. Skip B and go into C. Why not? We have enough examples here. Okay, so first question we ask ourselves always, we look at this and say, is there a greatest common factor? What's the smallest number here? 1, so for sure there's not going to be. Okay, all right, so then is it simple or complex? Complex because of the number in front of the 12. And so because of this 12, we want two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to negative 8. If we are going to multiply to a positive but add to a negative, 2 negatives, it has to be 2 negatives. So 12 we could go, oh sorry, this would be a negative right there, negative 8. Add to negative 8. So we could go negative 1, negative 12, negative 2, negative 6, or negative 3, negative 4. Negative 2 and negative 6. Okay, so what are we always trying to create when we have complex trinomials? We want to turn it into how many terms? 4. So I'm going to write 12t squared. Are we going to write minus 8t anymore? No, we're going to instead write minus 2t and minus 6t plus 1. So that h is broken up. Okay, now what? What are we going to do now? What grouping? So first two, what can you divide both by? 2 and t. So if we divide both by 2t, what's left over? 6t minus anything divided by itself is 1. Okay, remember, if there's ever a negative and the first term is a negative, you want to pull out that negative. So what's the GCF here? 6t and 1. Negative 6t and 1. What's our greatest common factor there? That doesn't mean you're here. Right? Not always. Okay, so if that first number is negative, bring out the negative 1. We're left with 2 negatives become positive, and 1 divided by negative 1, negative 1. Okay, last step. Because that first number here is negative, because we want these to be identical. So always bring out that negative if the first one's negative there. Okay, and last, factor out 6t minus 1, and what's left over? 2t minus 1. Okay, 2 more left. They're a little bit different. Backwards. So what can we do to make it forwards if it's backwards? Could we rearrange it? Okay, so what would go first? Negative 2x squared. Why can we? Because we're adding. So 2 plus 3 is the same thing as 3 plus 2. That's why. So look at the symbol in front of it, so we can just rewrite it. Because it's addition, it doesn't matter the order in which we add or subtract. That's why. Okay, so what's different about this guy? Well, is there a greatest common factor? No. And is it simple or complex? Complex. But what's a little bit different than there's a negative in front? Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually factor that negative out first. Okay? So if we factor a negative out, or a negative 1 out, just times everything by a negative 1. So the new inside becomes 2x squared plus 7x minus 15. We factored out the negative 1. It just switches all the signs. Now, is the inside what we're used to seeing? Yeah. So that inside, we said already that it's complex. So if it's complex, the inside, we want two numbers that multiply to positive or negative? Negative 30 and adds to 7. Whenever we multiply to a negative, we have 1 negative, 1 positive. Okay, so negative 30. How can we multiply to negative 30? Negative 1, positive 30, or 1 and negative 30. What's another way? That's obviously definitely not close to 7. 2 and 15. Okay, so if you did like negative 2, 15, or positive 2, negative 15, is that close to 7? No. 3 and 10. Negative 3, positive 10, or 3 and negative 10. Which one adds to positive 7? Negative 3, positive 10. We want the larger number to be positive for it to add to a positive. So negative 3, positive 10. Okay, so the difference here is we still have that negative in front. But everything else is the same. So we're going to break up our middle term just like we did before. So instead of writing positive 7x, inside we have 2x squared. We're going to write what? Minus 3x plus 10x, and then we still have minus 15. Okay, so negative. Okay, first two, we want to group. What can you factor out of the first two? Remember, there will always be a variable in the first two. So if there's no other number, there is an x. X, and we're left over is 2x minus 3. Because x divided by x is just 1. They reduce out. Okay, how about 10 and 15? What can we divide both by? 5. So what are you going to, would you just write 5 here? Have to write plus 5. And now our set of brackets, 2x minus 3. Did we make a mistake? These are the same. So last step, we don't need the square brackets anymore. We still have a negative, but what can we factor out here? 2x minus 3, and we're left with x plus 5. We just leave the negative in front. And what's cool is we're going to relate this to our graphing unit. So this guy would be opening down because that negative a value we had. Or just looking at the sign in front of the x squared, right? That's our a value. So this guy's opening up. And these guys in factor 4 are going to tell us our x-intercepts. One more. First question you ask yourself. Is there a greatest common factor? And Brady, the answer was 5. We can divide everybody by 5. Right? Okay. So where does that 5 go? In front, now we have 3x squared plus 1x minus 2. All right, now that we have our greatest common factor taken care of, we have to check inside, is it simple or complex? Complex. Why? Who's causing the issues? 3. So we want two numbers that multiply 2 and simple. So remember, simple would be something like this. X squared plus x minus 2. That would be simple, right? So, So in this case, we would just have to find two numbers and multiply to negative 2 and add to, again, the middle, which is 1. So 2 and negative 1. And so we just put those numbers in. X plus 2, x minus 1. It's that simple, right? That was factoring simple trinomials. We can just go straight from that, figuring out the two numbers, to putting them in the brackets. And that's when the number in front of x squared is, right? So that's simple. We don't have simple here, though. 3 times negative 2, negative 6. Negative 6, and adds to, what's the coefficient? Yeah, it's a coefficient of 1 if there's no number in front of the variable. Okay, so if it's multiplying to a negative, what do we know about both numbers? Multiplying to a negative? Okay, I hear it, kind of. 1 negative, 1 positive. So Jesse, what did you say? Negative 2, positive 3? So those are the numbers? Yeah, because they add to positive 1. And they multiply to negative 6. What are you going to do with that 5? Leave it on the outside. Keep those brackets. So instead, we're going to write 3x squared minus 2x plus 3x. We're replacing the middle term. And then minus 2. Okay? And then we're just at grouping. So the first two, what can you factor out? X, and we're left with, so divide each by x. 3x minus 2. And what can you factor out of that? Nothing. So we just actually write what number? 1. We can divide both by 1. So here I'd write plus 1, so that you 3x minus 2. It's actually not nothing. Yeah, it's 1. So last step, 5. We can factor out 3x minus 2. And what are we left with? x plus 1. Okay, so the homework for this assignment is I have 1 to 10 all. So a lot of you got started on some of it last day, right? I don't know. We have basically an hour and 5 minutes to work on this assignment. Okay, so that's a lot of time. Why? Because you really need to practice this stuff. So it might seem like a lot, but it's very important that you practice it because the success of this unit is really hanging on whether you can factor. Okay, so that's it for today. You have the rest of class to factor.